These militiamen have captured a major prize after days of heavy fighting. They seized control of the border town of Nakam in Myanmar's northern Shan state. They're members of a rebel military alliance sharing a single goal: to control the country's northeastern border with China and ultimately to unseat Myanmar's military known as the Tatmadaw. Insurgents, in an action they called Operation 1027, have wrested control of dozens of communities in the mountainous jungles in the north and overrun more than 100 military outposts. Among the captured towns are critical strategic border crossings with China. The rebel advance marks a turning point since February 2021, when the junta overthrew Myanmar's democratically elected government that was led by Aung San Suu Kyi. The military cracked down on mass protests that followed, forcing the opposition to flee to the jungles, where they joined existing rebel forces. 2.5 years into the civil war, the latest operation has been described as the most severe blow yet that rebel forces have inflicted on the junta. It even prompted a warning from the country's president, Min Aung Hlaing, that the country was at risk of breaking apart.
Clearly, things are no longer sustainable for the Myanmar army. At some point, it's either going to have to give up very significant parts of territory, or it might even be pushed to potentially make even bigger concessions. So the Myanmar military, I think, is facing an existential crisis at this point.
Hundreds of Myanmar troops, including a senior military official, have been killed during the offensive that started on October 27th. The fighting has taken place across multiple fronts, including areas as far away as the Indian border. The offensive appears to have sapped morale among the army's rank and file, with Myanmar soldiers seen surrendering at the Indian border on November 9th. Fighting has been concentrated in the country's outlying regions, in the northeast and southeast bordering China and Thailand. The areas are among the poorest and least developed in the country, inhabited by various ethnic groups. Ethnic armed and rebel groups have historically controlled vast swathes of these regions, which are tough for the central government to control because of the harsh terrain and poor infrastructure. So, who's behind the insurgency? The Three Brotherhoods Alliance, comprising 3 ethnic groups, is leading the operations. They have joined forces with militias loyal to the ousted civilian government, the National Unity Government, or NUG. While the NUG wants to see the end of military rule, the Brotherhood's goal is to secure broader autonomy for their peoples.
What they want is that they potentially can help to overthrow the government, the military, but obviously they want something in return. The ultimate goal they want is for some kind of autonomy for themselves. So that depends on basically whether the NUG or other particular political forces will be able to promise some kind of federated solution in the post-military future.
The successes of Operation 1027 have inspired other ethnic rebel groups to launch their own operations. This video, released by anti-military forces in Myanmar's southeast, claims to show wounded junta troops surrendering to insurgents. Some analysts say that while Myanmar's military risks becoming overstretched as it defends itself on multiple fronts, the Tatmadaw remains a strong and well-equipped fighting force. Analysts say the junta's grip on power remains secure as long as it holds on to Myanmar's heartland, the Bamar homeland.
I think it is a big stretch to say that they will be able to march down to Bamar proper and then be able to, invade and then, eliminate the military force in the heartland of Bamar. I don't think it's likely.
In the meantime, the UN reported that more than 280,000 people have been displaced by the fighting, with many fleeing to neighboring China and India.
he ang buk te ne na va om ve kha kan chak ve lu tuk ti kha ka sai the ni se hela ya kan om na hi nuam ma se ma ni khwa hi kan ngai ve ngoi ya eng te ka nge kan hon thayang lalpa in eng te ka nge kan ma khwa min hon leang ti kha kan thlir rang ani.
We have to fear this bombing. The peoples are running in the rivers, in the border. Yes, we have to fear, and this bomb is coming Sunday afternoon about 5:30 p.m. The drone have dropped the bomb in Sipai camp.
For its part, China has been closely watching developments along its border.
高度关注缅北的冲突态势，我们始终敦促相关各方尽快停火止战，坚持通过对话协商，以和平的方式解决分歧，避免事态升级，并采取切实有效的措施，确保中缅边境的安全稳定。
Beijing had enjoyed good relations with the Aung San Suu Kyi government. China financed the Myanmar Economic Corridor as part of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative to serve as a direct gateway to the Indian Ocean and energy suppliers from the Middle East. Historically, China has engaged in trade with several ethnic groups along its border, but the rise of scam centers that have sprung up since the military took over has given rise to a change of heart in Beijing. The junta has turned a blind eye to these scam syndicates, which often target Chinese nationals, despite pressure from Beijing to crack down on them. The Three Brotherhood Alliance has vowed to shut down the industry.
Beijing is willing to let this goal to be accomplished first and see what's happening next. And whether the EAOs, if they will be able to retake the territories that they previously controlled, and then that perhaps will be able to restore the political order in the region.
More than 30,000 Chinese citizens working in those scam centers have been repatriated since the start of the rebel operation. Still, Beijing has not cut off ties with the junta, which it officially recognizes as the legitimate government in Myanmar.